What's up, guys? Today I wanted to go ahead and revisit the LG V60 for late 2023. Got a lot of requests to do this one, and this is probably one of the only phones I think has just gotten extremely good with age. It is really surprising just with these software updates. And what's more surprising is that this phone is actually still receiving security patches as well too. So that was actually pretty surprising. So it's still receiving quarterly updates, which is really nice. So I'm really impressed with this phone, just in particular, just using it. It is just a really smooth phone as well too. Like I said, this is one of the rare phones that when it came out in, I believe, 2020, now to 2023, it is just even faster and the animations are smoother. It is really impressive. What these updates have done to this phone. So let's go ahead and just dive in here and let's just do a price update. And like I said, you can find this phone for little to nothing. I see them all the time going for under $100, and typically this phone is sitting at around 150, $100 honestly. And you can get the dual screen case as well too. And yeah, this is just a really cheap phone. Like I said, you can easily find it for $100. Yeah, so absolutely a beast of a phone, and I absolutely love it. You can actually just still use this as a main device since it is getting those security patches, and also honestly you could just throw some antivirus software on it and just be cautious of not downloading things that are not in the Play Store. And yeah, I have not had an issue with this device since I had it, and just really impressed. Now, I think this is probably still one of the best devices you can pick up to do gaming, since this phone does have the Snapdragon 865 chip on it, and then you also have micro SD card support, base storage 128 gigs of internal storage, and 8 gigs of RAM. This phone is extremely fast when it comes to gaming, and like I said, if you add that dual screen case, you can actually like see the PUBG map on the other screen, which is pretty cool. And the case doesn't cost that much. You can find it for right now these days under $100 as well too, which is pretty cool. But yeah, guys, this phone is a beast for gaming performance. So it just beats anything in its price range, as far as compared it to maybe a Galaxy A14 or something like that, or even a that A24, A34, whatever Samsung has out, or whatever these budget mid-range phones. This phone is going to do a much better job with gaming performance as well too. You can see on PUBG we can still play at HDR Extreme on here, and everything is just buttery smooth on here. It's easily holding these 60 frames. So this is just a really nice phone to game on. I just absolutely love it. It's a really cool experience to get for $150. The questions about the Android 13 software, I think it's made the phone, like I said earlier, much more smoother in my opinion. The phone is just blazing fast. That's why I said I was really surprised. It just feels faster than when this phone initially launched. Just a very fast phone. So you guys can see just all the animations and stuff like that. And Android 13 has been a breeze on this phone. I have not had any type of major bugs on this device, which is pretty sweet. Now the V60's display is still really nice. It's a POLED display. It's HDR10 Plus at 6.8 inches. It's 1080p 395 for the PPI. So overall, it's a very beautiful display. I think it still looks really good, even though it still has the sort of older water drop notch on here. But honestly, it's still better than, like, let's say like an iPhone 14's display. The base model still has that big notch, so this is even still better than some newer phones. But the display on here is gorgeous. It's a pretty big phone for sure, so just do note that sometimes you gotta like two-hand this phone. It is a pretty big beefy phone, especially if you get the dual screen case. But the display on here is overall beautiful. Pretty good color on this phone as well too. And yeah, I absolutely love the display. I think the only thing with this phone is that they didn't put any high refresh rate on this phone, but the cool thing about this phone is that the screen actually just feels really smooth. So even though it doesn't have 120 Hertz, it doesn't feel like a slow 60 Hertz display. So that's one thing that I've always appreciated, just how smooth the screen feels on here, even though it is a 60 Hertz panel. But just ask any V60 user in the comments. This screen feels really smooth, so that's something that I really like. And like I said, the display is just an overall very good high quality panel. Now let's talk about the overall hardware. So I've had this phone for a very long time, and as you can see, I don't have any major scratches on this phone. This phone is really built like a tank. It's glass and metal. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. It is a really well built phone. So like I'm looking around and I don't have any major scuffs or scratches on this phone. I think I have a few hairline, a few like tiny little scratches right here. But yeah, the screen has held up really well. I don't have any major, scratches on the screen. It's just in pretty good condition. So the hardware is just really solid, and it feels just like a really solid phone. So this phone was extremely well built. I think one of LG's best built phones as far as like durability. It just feels extremely solid. I've dropped it a ton of times too as well. You have the headphone jack with the quad DAC. So this is a pretty great feature because not a lot of phones have headphone jacks, especially when it comes to the flagship phones. And this one has the headphone jack and the quad DAC. So if you put a good pair of headphones on this phone, you get some really good audio out of this phone too. And like I said, it also has SD card support. So it's got a lot going for it. Even in 2023, it still is very competitive, even with the latest Galaxies and iPhone and stuff like that. And not only that, but this phone does have pen support, which a lot of people forget about as well too. And speaking of the hardware, the fingerprint scanner on here is pretty decent. Like I said, it's not the fastest, but it works. No issues with that. I only wish they put face unlock on this phone. And the speakers on this phone are really good as well too. Go ahead and max the volume. So pretty good speakers on here, a ton of bass, and just really loud. So that's something that is also really good. So yeah, just a really good experience when it comes to audio quality and just having all the bells and whistles here. Now, as far as image quality, I get a lot of questions on, is the image quality better with the updates? And I haven't really noticed too much of a difference with the image quality on this phone. It's a 64 megapixel standard, 13 megapixel ultra wide, it's a 0.3 depth sensor, 8K 30 for the video, and 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 30. Only thing I wish this phone actually had is a dedicated like telephoto lens. But overall, the pictures on here still look pretty good. You guys can see the shots for yourself. Really natural color on these pictures as well too. And it overall takes decent pictures, but just like a lot of these older flagship phones, it doesn't do as good in low light situations like the newer phones do, but it still takes pretty good shots here. You get really good image processing here. You don't get a whole bunch of overexposure, good balance with the photos, good dynamic range, and the 64 megapixel lens, you can get a really good shot, and be able to zoom in and still retain a good amount of detail with this phone as well too. So overall, the image quality looks really good. Portrait shots come out pretty decent. Video is really good on here, and also this phone does have a manual mode as well too, which is really nice. So any of you guys who like love to take pictures, you guys know manual mode is always a really good option to have on your phone. So I think the photo taking experience on this phone is pretty good. For the most part, I think for the casual photo taker, I don't think it's an awful experience, especially if you're in good lighting. It still takes, a phenomenal photo. But like I said, it does show its age a little bit when you take it out of like a good lighting scenario. You can get sort of a grainier shot and stuff like that, and just kind of soft. But overall, I think the image quality is still pretty decent here. The most surprising thing with this phone throughout the years is actually battery life. This phone has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And battery life is really good on this phone. Really good standby time as well too with this phone. And you also get wireless charging on board with this phone as well too. But battery life is really good, guys. I'm telling you, you pretty much can get through a day and a half with this phone. It does a really good job with battery life. So obviously if you use a dual screen case, it might drain a little bit faster. But using a phone just by itself, it is really good when it comes to battery life. I had zero issues with battery on this phone. Also, I have had just a few guys in the comments that said they were having charging port issues. I noticed that was like a thing with this phone. you know, sometimes on Reddit you will see that's kind of like the main issue. I haven't had any issues with a charging port on my phone. Yeah, so yeah, I don't really know. You would have to, you know, get it fixed. I guess you take it to a phone repair shop, but I haven't had that issue. Everything has been a pretty smooth experience on this phone. So I absolutely love it. For $100, it makes easily one of the best phones that you can get at this price range, and it's still getting security patches, and you can find it for just crazy cheap. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.